Delighted on this episode for its images and worlds to be peering into the creative space, Frankenstein included, of author John Collins. John, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely glad to have you. Folks out there can check out your latest book, The Leeds Point Horror, which has been published by Alien Buddha. And glad to chat with you about that book and your origin in general. What brings you to this creative space of writing? How did you get into this world?
Um, I've always been a horror fan since I was a little kid. I had, I had my parents, my father was not so much. My father was a very grounded, down to earth person, but my mother just enjoyed any kind of flights of fancy. So it was very much encouraged, enjoying movies, enjoying books especially. And I just gravitated towards the darker stuff. Like when I was back in, I'm 53, so I was raised, my kindergarten years, I was in the 70s. I remember they used to have prizes in cereal boxes, and
Hmm.
Super Sugar Crisp, for some reason, were giving out posters of Universal monsters. And we found one that was Lon Chaney as a family opera. And I was 5 years old, not at all like, how am I going to see this? I don't know how, 5 years old in the 70s, but I was fascinated by the image. And just, I would always see something, and it was always in my head. Wow, that's really neat. That's really awesome. What's this story behind that? And eventually you get to see these movies and get to, and then eventually get to read them, but you see these movies, they're not so, they're not as one dimensional as some people might think they are. Like the Wolfman
Hmm.
with Lon Chaney is such a tragic character. That's the stuff that drew me to it. So it just kept going. And then I started getting book anthologies for Christmas from my grandmother. She would give us like, she would get every grandkid like a couple shirts, some socks, and underwear, typical grandma's presents. But there was always that
Hmm.
one gift. And she would get us, and she always got me these Alfred Hitchcock anthologies, like Haunted House
Nice.
Full and stuff like that. And some of the stories were like a little over my head, but I read the story that just made me fascinated with fiction was Yours Truly, Jack the Ripper by Robert Bloch.
Hmm.
And when I read that, I think I was like 8 years old at the time, but I read it like back to back to back, like 8 times. Just I couldn't get enough of that story. I couldn't, it frightened me so much, but I loved it. And eventually, as I got older, I became more, you know, more interested in film because books were, you're a kid, you have access to what's available to you. It's not, I can go out and buy this, I have to take whatever's on my mother's bookshelf. So
Hmm.
I read Salem's Lot, and then the next book I read was um the Linda Lovelace autobiography Ordeal. I'm like, and that now in hindsight, it's like, yeah, that kind of makes sense for the kind of stuff I tend to gravitate towards. But movies always, they were easier access, so I wanted to do special makeup effects. The problem was I sucked at it. I was terrible at it. It was super expensive to do. I didn't have the money to do it. And eventually that dream died. But eventually I started gravitating towards writing and more fiction. I mean, I read more books than I see new movies in a year. So that's been the case for the last decade and a half, to be quite honest. So eventually I started writing and met some very encouraging people. Robert Otone's one of them. James Chambers is another one. And people like Summer Cannon, just wonderful people that were just very encouraging, and but also taking the time, like, okay, this isn't working here, and this is why it's not working. So you might want to think about that. And it's been eventually, I started writing just for me, but eventually, like, you know what? Let's try publishing. Let's see what happens. Because other
Yeah.
people did, why not? And so far, knock wood, it's been it's been slow and steady, but it's been people have been receptive. So I'm very happy about
Cool, cool. Yeah, and, we were talking before I hit record about how nice it is to find a creative community that's also supportive. So glad that you found that in some of those folks that you just mentioned. And may it continue and may it grow.
that. Yep. Yeah, the horror community. I was so nervous about going to my first StokerCon. I was so nervous because these are people I look up to. You know, I'm in my 50s, but around some of these people, I'm like a 10-year-old kid, just wide-eyed and like, oh my God. And they're just a night. I mean, I haven't met anyone in this community that rubbed me the wrong way, or I mean, everyone's just so nice and encouraging because it's the first community I've ever been around where there's no real competition. Everyone wants to see everyone else do well.
Hmm.
And I love that. I love when I was sending out the Leeds Point Horror for blurbs. I only sent it to four people because I didn't know how much space Alien Buddha would give me for that. I wasn't too sure, so I was like, I'll keep it modest. And I sent it to four people I knew if they didn't like it, they would tell me. I knew they'd be honest enough for that. And they everyone was just, the honesty. You can't ask for much more than that. I'm still in a critique group, and if something doesn't work, they'll be okay. This kind of sucks. Oh, okay, thank you. Let's talk about it. So it's been wonderful with a lot of wonderful people.
Yeah, yeah. There's always that process of writing, and it sounds like critique group is part of your process. I'm curious about any other parts of the process you've practiced, and anything that you would recommend as part of that.
Um, my biggest hurdle was dialogue. Dialogue
Mhm.
to me, and it was just every character I was writing sounded like me. It didn't sound like different people as they're supposed to be. And I tried all the tricks. I had people say, well, go to the diner and have a cup of coffee and just listen to people talk, which is kind of creepy, but it just didn't work for me. And then this one wonderful writer, Ed Kurtz in Connecticut, when he was on Facebook, he put this little post about working dialogue. Read David Mamet and Sam Shepard plays.
Mhm.
You see how dialogue works. And I went on Amazon. I bought, a lot of this stuff's out of print, so you had to get like the used copies. And oh my God, I never thought to read play scripts before. And now I'm addicted to David Mamet kind of left me a little cold, but still great. But Sam Shepard, oh my, I wish I discovered him earlier in my life. It was just,
Yeah.
but I mean, if I had any, the one thing I started to do is just look outside, looking outside the box for different approaches to the tropes, because horror is nothing but tropes. It's just how you approach it, the way I see it.
Hmm.
There's a million vampire novels, and yes, there'll be a million more, and 900,000 will sound exactly the same. But the ones that just take a different approach, those are the ones that stand out. They're the ones that sit at the top. And if you can find in my mind, if you could find an approach to a tired trope, quote unquote, um, I think you have something that's going to interest people and interest yourself. Because I mean, honestly, I always say the same thing. I write for me. If it
Hmm.
doesn't, if it doesn't, if it doesn't work for me, I'm not sending it out. I have a whole like two binder notebooks of story ideas. One page of just jot down notes, and some of them will never see the light of day. I have some stories on my computer may never see the light of day again, but it's just something I wanted to try, and okay, it worked. And for me, if it doesn't work, I'm not even going to try to waste anyone else's time. I'll just use it as a learning experience for myself. That's that's my approach to it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything that you'd like to say about the creative spark for Leeds Point, and how that story entered your mind, and where it exists in the writer's notebook up to now?
Um, the Leeds Point, the inspiration for that comes from two things. I'm a very nostalgic person, nostalgic to my own youth, not the era itself. When
Hmm.
I was a kid, we had a long line. I can't speak for the rest of the world, but we had a lot of traveling carnivals, like the roller coasters that we pulled on the tractor trailers. They set them up. They have the tilt a whirl and all that stuff in the games and all that stuff. And that was a good substitute for parents who were too cheap to take their kids to Disney. So we would go to these things. We would go to these things because especially when I was growing up, the only thing close by was Six Flags. So like, oh well, we'll go to Six Flags at the end of summer. There's a carnival down the road at the Walmart parking lot. Oh, okay. And we'd go as kids and see these things. And as much as I enjoyed them because nostalgia makes things puts a nice gloss on some things. I always noticed there was a little kind of on the skeevy, kind of dangerous side. These rides that have people rocking back and forth, and you see like the one bolt shaking a little bit. It's like, oh, that's not good. And there was always like these guys operating the rides, like, yeah, I don't think he took a safety course. This isn't good. And I always loved the imagery. These big bright neon lights, and always kind of like what lurks behind. Like I'm behind those lights. I'm the person that drives by an abandoned house with my wife, and I'll look at her and I'm like, something terrible's happening in there, and she's like, yeah, 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 yeah. But I always thought of that. So, and then you had movies like Vampire Circus and Carnival of Souls and Bradbury, something that Wicked This Way Comes. And so Carnival's always had nice little feel like that. I'm like, I would love to write a Carnival story. And the first draft, this was three different drafts of three different stories, same length. And the first one just didn't work at all. It's like, okay, but I still like that Carnival setting. Okay, try it again. And this one was a little better. It was a little bigger actually, but it got too complicated and wasn't what I was looking for. So I kind of pared that down and changed the story. And I I'm a monster fan. I like monsters. I like creepy crawlies. I like cheesy 80s paperbacks like The Manse by Lisa Cantrell and all this. I love that stuff. And it's not always the greatest, but they're fun. And I decided that I wanted to write this because I had some minimal success writing short stories and getting some of them out there. And I found short stories, as much as I love them, I love reading them, and I do love writing them. The wait process to get answers on submissions was just driving me nuts. And I'm like, I think it's time to write something bigger, something for me. It's my debut. And so it seemed like the good time to do it. And it took about the final the what the Leeds Point Horror is now. It took about 10 months of writing, editing, writing, going back, changing things. And I sent it to Alien Buddha, and actually it's this weekend that it's in the anniversary that I got the acceptance. I
Nice.
was down
Happy
in
anniversary.
thank you. I was in Scranton. This was New York writer C.W. Breyer invited me to a book signing because I was in some anthologies and they were going to be selling them there. So, and that night, there's the Mahan Drive-In in Pennsylvania where they do lots of retro showings, and they were doing House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula. And we are going to get popcorn, and my phone buzzed, and I looked, and I got the acceptance. Like, ah. So, but I was so terrified to show this to anybody outside of my writer friends. I was so overcoming the nerves was a big thing for me, and I still feel it. I still feel sending something because I want people, if people excuse me, decide to spend time and spend money on what I'm selling them. I want them to enjoy it. I want them I want them to walk away and like, even if the story doesn't like, oh, okay, that may have been a little too dark for me, but I had fun writing. Okay, that's all I wanted from this. I'm not looking for a war and peace. I'm not looking to make some profound statement of the nature of man. I'm giving you a horror story that I hope you enjoy. And I wear the title pulp horror writer like a badge of honor. To me, that's the greatest thing that's the greatest thing I can aspire to outside of being a husband and a father. It's wonderful.
Oh, cool. Yeah, love that. There is this long history of carnival and horror. I'm thinking about like Edgar Allan Poe and Cask of Amontillado, and there's something about like not being quite in control and all of these crazy things happening around you that allows frightening things to cross your mind.
Yeah, and I mean you're putting your trust in not only sometimes just strangers, but masked strangers. Like when you go
Mm-hmm.
to Disney World, you go to Disney World, you have no problem with your kid running over and hugging Mickey Mouse. You have no problem with it. But for some reason that blinder just goes off depending on the setting. And I always kind of yeah, I'm not as trusting as I used to be. I'm a little bit more jaded. But when all of a sudden you get into these environments and all of a sudden those blinders just come off for a lot of people. And it's just kind of like, oh, okay. Like someone hands you a corn dog and like sometimes you don't even pay attention if they're wearing like latex gloves. Like
Hmm.
and they're like, oh, should I be eating it? It's just so the when you're in a carnival, amusement park, um your guard drops immediately. I mean, especially if you're bringing kids to it, because as a parent, there's nothing better than seeing your kids smile for a second. So it's just kind of
Hmm.
like there's like you all of a sudden your defenses in that one area go down that they wouldn't go down anywhere else. If you go into a supermarket or a store and some guy in a clown costume runs over your kid, just you're pulling your kid away. You might be swinging for him. It's so that area just kind of gives these people, gives these people, and I'm not saying they're nefarious, but gives these people like some kind of freedom that you wouldn't give them anywhere else. And I find that a little alarming.
Yeah, yeah. Sign here, please, to make sure that everything is fine.
Now that'd be $200. Your social security number too, please. And
Yeah.
but it's crazy.
Yeah. You're talking about nostalgia. Anything in particular that was part of the creative soup of the book that you want to mention?
Um, I I tried real hard to make the relationship between the main character Lisa and her boyfriend and brothers different than it was my relationship with my brother and my sister. And because I didn't want to glom off those things. I didn't want like my brother to read this book down the road and like, oh dude, you just ripped us off. Because he would
Hmm.
actually say that too. Um I I think the nostalgia thing for me on this is just kind of remembering a little bit happier time when my parents were younger. My parents had my parents wonderful people. They're no longer with us. They were wonderful people, but they made terrible decisions. So there was always this there was always this little dark cloud floating over them. But those moments, like I said before, when you see anything to make your kids happy, that made them happy.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
I think if there was anything nostalgic about that, it was that. I wish there was I wish there was an autumn based carnival like I wrote about because I cheated a little bit. I've never actually seen an autumn carnival that's actually like roller coasters and tilt-a-whirls and stuff like that. I mean, you go to autumn carnival now, it's pumpkin picking and stuff like that. So I cheated a little bit with that, but it was more a feeling for me more than it was anything that I actually put into like action wise into the book. It was more of a, just a set that sense of just being happy around each other, even for a few minutes, especially in this, before it all goes to hell. You know,
Yeah.
it's that if I took anything nostalgic away from that, that was it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like you brought a lot of new ground to it as well, thinking about the character relationships and some of those pieces. And I'm sure even some of the horror tropes that we know very well. Sounds like you expanded on that.
I tried to. I tried to. I read a lot of I did a lot of research at first on black magic and things of that nature. And some of the, looking up at books of like demonology and stuff like they're so dense. And I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna make it up. I'm just gonna make, I'm writing fiction. I can make up anything I want. If I want a
Hmm.
shark suddenly swimming through the sky, that's what I'll do. But not that that happens in a book. Oh, that's a pretty cool idea. But yeah, I just, I I almost fell into the like I think the trap of too much research. And I'm
Yeah,
like, you know what?
yeah.
This is fiction. I'm not writing nonfiction here. I don't have to consider the victims or anybody else. I could do whatever I want. So that's what I ended up doing. So stretching the tropes, like I said about vampire novels. I read two vampire novels this year that were completely different and they were wonderful. I was like, oh my God, I never saw this approach before. They were just great, as opposed to, you know, a vampire in a small town, blah, blah, blah. And that's what I aimed for with this. I really, like one of my favorite monsters is the xenomorph in Alien because
Hmm.
it's just
Hmm.
so different looking. It's so great. I mean, they did a lot of things just to break up the human body shape, but it was so different looking. So you like, especially in the first movie, you're like, what the hell am I looking at? And that's kind of, but even though you didn't know what you're looking at, you had a sense of what it was. And that's what I was kind of aiming for with this, with a few things. And my love of my love of 80s splatterpunk books. I really wanted excuse me, I really wanted to have that aesthetic to it as well. Be a little mean when it needs to be a little hopeful when it should be. And so far, so far from the input I'm getting from people, I'm doing my best not to read reviews. I'm doing my very best not to do it. But the people who've actually reached out and said something to me, stuff to me, I've been pretty pleased that people have seemed to be enjoying it. So that makes me so happy. I mean, I couldn't ask for more than that.
Oh, wonderful. Glad to hear it. And by means of a last two-part question, what do you want to explore next, and where can we find out more about your work?
Excuse me, sorry. I have a short story collection that I have a couple beta readers going through it now. Um, that's gonna be the next thing going out for submission. The thing I'm working on now is my first novel. Um, and there's no really great way of describing it without giving too much away, but it's a it's it's a cosmic slash supernatural slash Ballad of Sexes book. So
Nice.
um I hope to have the first draft done by Christmas and then we'll go through it. I'm hoping the beta readers for the collection have been pouring through it really fast, so I'm hoping I'll get that out for submission by Thanksgiving. That's what I'm hoping for. As far as finding my stuff, honestly, the best way to find my stuff is go to my Facebook page, John P. Collins Jr., or my Instagram, J period P period Collins, and I post about all that stuff. I don't have a large body of work enough that I warrant an Amazon page yet. And if I did a website, it would be the most boring website on the planet right now. So, but I'm hoping I can change that by this time next year. That's what I'm
Yeah,
hoping for. But social media, I mean, the devil that is social media, that's the best way to find out about what I'm doing. That's pretty much it.
sounds good. Sounds good. Well, may the creating continue. Did we miss anything that you want to make sure to include before we close out?
Um, Happy Halloween and be cool to each other. Make sure you give kids full size Snickers when they show up at your house.
Love it.
Other
Love
than
it.
that, no, thank you very much for this. I appreciate it.